Programming. My name is Mohammed, and coding alongside me is.
Is George, and today we'll be going over the concepts of the general concept of arrays, specific concept of list, and basically how they kind of work together with different languages versus Python. Go ahead, Mohammed.
So, as George mentioned, this is the second video of our series on data structures in Python. In particular, we'll be dealing with arrays here, right? So, a lot of you might have heard arrays here and there. In particular, if you're preparing for coding interviews. Uh, But in Python, people might not identify what an array is because there is no such data structure existing built in the built-in version of the plain Python. Which means most people ask the question: there is no fundamental data structure called arrays in Python. Why and why is that? And that is the question that we'll be dealing with in this video. Simply speaking, in Python, arrays are a collection of elements of the same data type stored in contiguous memory locations. So, if you imagine, uh, let's say, a memory as a square with nine smaller squares within that. Usually, a computer assigns memory, let's say, on the topmost left-hand side first, and after that, when you save memory again, it might assign that randomly among all those nine squares, but not necessarily next to the previous square where you saved the memory. That is because memory assignment is random, and we won't go too deep into that. But the thing that we need to take from that is, uh, while memory assignment is random when we're dealing with general purpose actions, in arrays, memory is stored right next to each other. That's what I meant by contiguous memory locations. That's very important to understand because it helps you visualize exactly how to leverage arrays. In Python, basically, we can use arrays in two ways. If you want to use array exactly as you might be familiar with if you coded in C or any other programming language that has an array data structure within that, you can do that as well. But that's not a built-in feature of Python. Python has replaced in as a built-in feature arrays with lists. So a lot of functionality that arrays could do, lists could do as well. But at the same time, while lists are more flexible, but they're slightly less efficient for numerical computations, large data sets compared to arrays. So we'll go over both methods on how you can leverage arrays if you want to work with arrays within Python, or how you could leverage the built-in list data type within Python without which is something that if you're if you have coded in Python for a time, you would understand is an exact replication of what arrays are. So we'll start first with lists because there are two methods. Number one, we'll just go over lists and try to understand what lists are and how we can work with them. So uh, if you look at this file that I've opened called list.py, here, like all of our other videos, we try to explain all fundamental coding concepts through actually written out code on our text editor, so that you can better understand exactly how these things work and how they look like when you're doing it on your coding environment. So if you want to initiate a list of integers, we simply create a variable and use the square notations, as you can see on line 2 that I've highlighted here. The square brackets, within that we use uh, any elements. It could be integers, it could be characters, what have you, but they need to be uh, they need to be separated by commas. uh, this, that's how you can initialize an array, a list within Python. Now, how do you access elements within the list? That's what we deal with on line 5. So if you look at line 5, we have used square bracket notation and with a number within that. So what does that number mean? Most of you would be familiar at this point, at least, that in computer science, indexing of indexing of position starts from 0. So 1 here the first element in the list is indexed at 0, and the rest is very simple. So the second element is indexed at 1, third element at 2, so on and so forth. So if you want to access a specific element within the list, we need to use the list's variable name with square brackets, and within the square brackets, we mention the index number which we want to access. In this case, we want to access index number 2. If you look at line number 5, and in doing so, we access the integer saved at index location 2, which is 3. At the same time, the next aspect for lists is how do we append a list? How do we add an element at the end of the list once we have initialized the list variable? We do that using the append function on Python. It's very simple. If you go to line 8, we use the variable name dot the append function with the digit that we want to append in the list. Keep in mind the append function adds that digit right at the end of the list. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 being the last number. But when we use the append 6, it would append number 6 next to the 5. Now, I want to put a disclaimer out here. It does not mean that the append function would, uh, again, place the number that you want to append to according to the ascending order. No, if I placed 2 instead of 6 here, it would still be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2.